We all know somebody who brags about, I've not slept since 2016. I'll sleep when I'm dead. I just work, work, work. And they kind of wear exhaustion as if it's like a badge of honour. But we're here to talk about how that's actually hugely detrimental to your lifespan, your quality of life, and everything else in between.
Yeah.
I'm going to shut up because you're the expert, and I'm talking too much here. But that's burnout. That's what we call that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. That's a burnout. Yes.
And how would you define that as the expert?
So the burnout is a physiological response to prolonged chronic stress, which shows up emotionally, mentally, and physically in human being. And World Health Organizations, they define burnout as an occupational phenomena, which happens in more like a workplace stress. That's what we tend to call it, really.
I always thought it just meant you're really tired and you need 2 days to rest, but it is it's more the emotional as well as the physical, isn't it?
Yes, it's very emotional. I think there's a kind of like a big difference between tiredness and a burnout. So when you're tired, so you're kind of taking a day off and you might just have a, nice sleep, full night sleep. You might just get better, feel better the day after.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in burnout is damage already done. So it's because it's prolonged chronic stress, it can't, go away by 1 day or 2 days taking time off.
Mm-hmm.
It needs a deeper change with a professional help, professional support.
Like when it kicks in, what will it do to a person's brain, like their body and in general, their day-to-day life?
Yeah, so, as I said, I mentioned about the emotional response. So the person become very irritable. The person become, aggressive, snappy, angry. Their productivity become less and less. Cognitively, they become forgetful. So the forgetfulness is one of the key things. So when they come in and say, I forgot to do this, I forgot to send the email, that literally means they're going through the burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And they might just get late. They might just, skip the meetings, procrastinate. The procrastination, one of the key things in the burnout, we're just putting off the task, avoiding, and eventually, withdrawing from social connection. Emotional detachment comes all of them as a, under the, if you say umbrella as a, if you see burnout as a one umbrella, they all coming under the one umbrella. Physically, person start to feel fatigue, tired, muscle tension, stomach problems, or sleep disturbance. They are kind of common symptoms of burnout when the person going through the burnout.
It's funny because I can recognize a few of these sort of characteristics or symptoms in one or two people I've worked with over the last few years.
Yeah.
Forgetting things that I told them straight away, or retelling me the same things over and over, and being really snappy. And I thought, their personality has really, really changed. But the reality, people's personalities don't really change that dramatically, do they? So they've been feeling the sort of effects of that.
100%. I think, I've seen, when clients, they come into therapy room and they saying, I'm reading the emails 10 times and I'm still not there.
Mm-hmm.
So that means, their mind, they might be not there because they are physically tired and they feel fatigue and tension already, but that's fine. They kind of cognitively, they can't put all the things together.
You work with people that experience burnout or are very close to it, and your aim is to either prevent them reaching that point or to help them come back from it.
Yeah.
In terms of even I was kind of thinking the main focus on work, but let's look at how it affects the relationships or enjoyment of life, because I think the best way for people to recognize as well if they're experiencing it is through other people's experiences and that sort of shared thing.
Yeah. So it definitely, affects the relationship, especially your romantic relationship. The person start to kind of detach emotionally from the other one. Mm-hmm. They become irritable and they not socially engage anymore. That's a problem. So often, as a couple therapist, I've seen a therapy room, the partners start to kind of complain about, my partner is not engaging with me anymore. They are not, we're going for holiday, but they are not there. They are there, but mentally they are not there. That's just only physically they're showing up for us, but mentally they are not there. That's the burnout, because that person's they might be completely thinking about the work. They're going through lots of stressful situations, but the problem is they are not able to kind of open up to the problem.
Is it possible that they could ever, in the sort of cloud of confusion, start to think that their partner is the problem? Because you mentioned emotional detachment, and they might start to focus all their frustration like towards them.
100%, 100%. That's one of the another kind of key things in the relationships. Someone they try to kind of blame each other. But the problem is they might just feel detached from that kind of connection already, and they might just even avoid, going for holidays, going for like a social gatherings. They become irritable. They become snappy. When they talk, they might just aggressive, even not toward the part, toward the children as well. But the problem is they feel guilt and shame right after that. And
yeah, my poor mum, she always gets used as the example here.
oh, bless her.
But I can think of times in the past
Yeah.
when she, oh my God, she would have been suffering from that.
Yeah.
And there are times when, she could have been the same as everybody's mum, snappy or like just anything could kind of make her go. And then you could tell she would immediately feel really bad. Yeah. Sometimes maybe not. Maybe she would take a wee bit longer to feel bad.
Yeah.
But looking back, the older I get, I always say that growing up, I think everyone looks back sometimes at interactions they have with their parents. Yeah. And it's easy to feel resentment or anger. But I think with every year that passes, the more that kind of fades away. Because you as an adult experience similar things and you think, right, okay, that's hard for me and I don't have a 7-year-old to like contend with.
Then you kind of start to resonate with the,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, honestly, with every year that passes, I'm like, by the way, I feel just less and less bothered about things because I'm like, yeah, man, you're kind of going through it. And at a point when this wouldn't have been discussed as sort of methodically or on such a like microscopic level. I have so many questions I want to go through, and I'm keen to get your expertise and insight. Not that this is the most important thing in the world, but businesses can be impacted by it as well, can't they?
Yes, hugely. I think there's hidden costs for businesses. I think remember, less engaging employees, they become less productive because they're taking lots of time off from the work. And if they are in that stress mindset, that means they are all the time in a survival mind. So because we have such a sophisticated threat brain, that's what we tend to call it. So we are in a fight or flight response. If they are in that survival mode, that means there's no room for creativity. There's no room for innovation. So a lot of the time what we see, repetitive ideas coming from people working in the business sectors, purely because they're just going through lots of stressful situations. There's no room for brainstorming even. I think, yes, another cost would be, presenteeism, absenteeism, that's what we tend to call it. The things I mean by presenteeism is when the employees is unwell, but still they're showing up, they might find themselves 1 hour in front of computer, but by doing anything. They do literally nothing, but physically they are there because mentally they are unwell.
I used to do that in some jobs I worked in. I was completely fine. I just sat there pretending I was working. Yeah. But no, I get it. And I feel like with the type of work I do, like creativity is a huge part of it. Yeah. And there are times where I'll have just a little period where I feel as if, I don't like this work anymore. It's false. Like I love it, but I think I don't like it. I can't come up with any ideas. I can't even write a very basic and simple, like snappy introduction. And I'll go through I suppose going through the motions until I realise like I just need to switch off. Like I just need a break. And if I'm able to get fortunate enough to be able to like go on holiday, when I just go for a week and don't think about it, then I come back and I've got these ideas and I can speak well. I think a good example actually last year, I did just an appearance on the radio and I was terrible. I couldn't think. I couldn't summon words. I couldn't react quickly. Managed to just go away for a week and really switch off. And when I came back, then I did something on TV and I was like a different guy.
Yeah.
And it's just that recognition of being able to take rest. And
Yeah.
that's this modern thing, isn't it? That people feel as if rest is a bad thing.
It's a laziness, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, why
Yeah.
do you think that is?
I think because, we're living in a highly modern, goal-driven society, unfortunately,
Yeah.
right? And I think everybody's self-worth is kind of measured by their achievement. So they say, I am what I achieve.
Or what I have.
Exactly. And if I take time off, that means, I'm lazy. That means, the guilt and shame comes after that. Because then maybe I'm not responsible enough. I'm taking time off for myself. And I always often find clients in the therapy room, it's really interesting, Sean, when they say, especially moms, like, oh, if I go, for example, if I do self-care, that means I'm selfish. I tend to rephrase selfish with a self-worth. Like that's a self-worth actually. So you're putting your need first. It doesn't mean you are selfish. So I think taking a time of like a resting, that's, is a huge dilemma. People most of the time, often they look at as a laziness because, we have such a, I always say, that's a inner boss, unfortunately, as an inner critic, I tend to call it.
The corporatization of the self, turning yourself into a corporation.
Absolutely.
As if like, no, I only exist to make money and to bring value to shareholders. And we're far more than that.
Yeah, unfortunately. And we kind of, instead of, kind of stepping to our self-compassionate zone, we stay away from it. And, instead of that, we go towards self-sabotaging.
Yeah. As if, you don't deserve nice things or to feel good.
Yeah.
It reminds me, you remember the old, I'm sure you still get them, I just don't pay attention anymore. The safety videos on aeroplanes.
Oh, yes.
And it says when
100%.
the oxygen mask falls, ensure you put your own on first before you help anyone else.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't have oxygen flowing to you, you're going to collapse at some point, and then everybody's.
Exactly.
I was going to use a bad word. Everyone's in trouble.
This is exactly the example I use in the therapy.
Do you really?
Yeah, 100%.
I swear to God, I've never heard you say that anywhere. But it made me think, like, you kind of. I thought, in terms of cliched phrases, you can't pour from an empty cup is just too predictable. I thought I'll try and be clever. There you go.
Yeah, but this is how it was that, definitely. And then I can see, I think, when you look at the burnout, you might just look at the one, you see the iceberg, right? What we see in the iceberg, we just see one little tip of it.
Yeah.
But there's a massive mountain under the water. So I think this is the burnout, kind of, we might just see the person comes and say, oh, I've got a burnout, but there's a huge stuff going on underneath. That could be, emotional response, physiological response, mental response.
Yeah.
And the bridge is already broken.
It also reminds, like the word burnout, I think because either people aren't used to hearing it or there's the misunderstanding. You kind of, it doesn't hit home as much, I think, when people are hearing it, which is why I like to get into it. But again, to use another example, it's like if you have a hairdryer just switched on, it quite literally burns out, doesn't it? Like you can't go at full power the whole time, or else you'll break.
Yeah, that's actually a good example. I'm gonna steal that example, Sean.
Yeah, you can steal it, no worries.
Yeah, definitely.
I won't even charge commission or anything. Do you find there's a certain type of profession that becomes at risk? Because like we're saying, it's all focused on what do I have or what have I achieved, but sometimes certain jobs, they may feel as if I stop, the others will get ahead of me, or I'm going to fall off the treadmill. Like, in your experience, what jobs?
I think, to be honest with you, every sector, and that is almost like a very psychological process, right? It's all in the person's mind. But if you look at the kind of the research, the competitive markets, think about the competitive job, like the people who work in the sales department, and their incomes based on their performance. They are working in a commission-based salary, so they are, most people, kind of worrying about their performance. They like inner critic. If I get time off, that means I'm not good enough. I haven't achieved the target. So the target-based company, lots of financial companies. I've been fortunate enough to working with law firms, and I've seen, it's really incredible to see how much they're going through the burnout.
Yeah.
There's a huge level of burnout going on in terms of the competitiveness in that sector.
And it's this toxic productivity type thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Assuring like, if I have to show that I'm working, I have to show that I want this.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, I get it. I've done that in some jobs before. Again, it never lasted that long. Like, I would maybe do it for a few months and think, nah, I don't really care.
Yeah, and this is it. Is you see, I think because there's staff retention is quite important, Sean. So if the company has got a good mental health support, there's a high level of staff retention. So if there's a lack of support, there's a low level of staff retention. So there's lots of they are not sustainable enough. There's a huge cost. Another cost would be the recruitment cost. Mental health expenses down the line, taking time off, and say like if they train some staff member and they are going through the burnout, they need to bring another staff. They need to train them, going through the lots of recruitment expenses. So these are the really hidden costs going on in the company. And you're right. If you're going through the burnout, you're not going to stay in that job. And You're just going to come off. That's true.
And that's the thing. And by the way, that leads me perfectly right into this example. So I asked someone that I know who had suffered from this entire process, and it was like a ordeal, and it was like a year-long thing. And there are some points that we haven't picked up on that we will come to.
Yeah.
And there are some points that we have spoken about which are perfectly sort of explained in this. So I'm going to read out what she sent me. So for you listening, this is not me. This is somebody that I know. So she said, for me, burnout meant exhaustion. Sorry, before I do go into this, a couple of points I wanted to make were that I think, there's the whole sort of psychological thing of I want to achieve and I have to be ahead and feeling stress and pressure. But I think there's also economic insecurity drives 100%. It. And right now, the world's tough, and sometimes it's like, call a spade a spade. Everybody's pretty scared, and I understand why, and I felt it myself. And I know at one point we've all felt that anxiety and insecurity. And then when it comes to the term, and I say this all the time on the podcast, even sometimes the words mental health, I kind of switch off at times because I'm like, it's lip service. It's people just, they're using fashionable terms and not considering what it means. And I think that sometimes leads to the misunderstanding that, a mental health issue is, excuse me. Sorry. I'll cut that later. It leads to this sort of misunderstanding that a mental health issue is something which is like, it's floating in the sky like bacteria and you can just catch it. And I think for the most part, they are linked to circumstances and they're linked to what does the landscape look like. So then if I owned a business and I was worried that someone, this person's off all the time and are they susceptible to depression? No, it's unlikely, I think, percentage-wise to be like a chemical imbalance. It's usually circumstantial.
And, I completely agree with you, Sean, because there's a huge level of stigma around mental health. It's still in this century, there's a huge level of stigma, unfortunately. When I'm seeing clients, when asking, like, why you didn't, talk to your manager in the first place, they say, I felt bad. Yeah. Because don't forget, we have a fear-based motivation. If we do something not from our passion and curiosity, we're doing only for not failing in something, not feeling left behind because of the financial security. Yeah. That doesn't come from our passion, right? Just come from our fear. So then certainly there's no room for creativity when you feel, fearful about something.
What I would love to see, and I think like as a general change or as we progress, because I think the whole, again, the hashtag men's mental health thing maybe kicked off like 2019, 20, it just really came to the fore. Yeah. And that's fine because things evolve and we learn. But I but I see that some people or factions of like society are still kind of intent and paying lip service, I think. So when it comes to discussing things, and just kind of sitting and saying, you know, empty platitudes like, it's okay not to be okay. Talk to
Yeah.
someone. These are all great, but there has to be something more substantial behind it. And for
Yeah.
me now, what I've realised over the years, if a friend comes to me and says, I'm on the edge, I feel like there's a bit of suicidal ideation, or tells me loads of those things, I will always ask, what is the issue that's
Mm.
causing you the most stress? And let's resolve that. So is it financial? Is it a relationship thing? Are you worried? And when you actually kind of get to that root cause,
Yeah.
then it's miraculous how much better somebody can feel. And it's like, yeah, it's
Exactly.
not, there's not this airborne virus. And
Yeah.
it's like, people are all of a sudden, oh, wow, everyone's catching depression and anxiety and these things. It's not, there are things that are depressing them and
Yeah.
are causing them to live in an anxious state. Resolve them. So I always say, like, I think if you set for a lot of people, if you were able to get like a universal basic income,
Yeah.
I know that's a whole other subject. I'm going a whole other tangent, but if you were to say to somebody, you have £1,500 a month, you don't have to worry where that's coming from.
Mm.
Well, I watch how much better everybody feels, and I know that's a very simplistic
Yeah.
solution to a very complex problem, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, and I think then if I was a business owner listening to this conversation and I had staff who are off worried or sick or dealing with mental health issues, I would be thinking, right, what are the practical things that we can resolve for them?
Mm.
But yeah, I'll read this out. So this is an account from someone who went through the whole hog and has gone from like start to finish. So for me, burnout meant exhaustion, anxiety, and depression. I didn't sleep properly or enough. Sometimes because I was working until 1 a.m., and other times because I was so stressed about the next day at work, I even had nightmares regularly. I didn't eat properly. I didn't spend time on my health because I was commuting, working, and stressing about work and just trying to fit having a quick dinner in before opening up the laptop again. I didn't enjoy anything about my life. I spent my weekends either working or thinking about work, and it was impossible to escape. I didn't enjoy my hobbies. I felt I gave up a lot and sacrificed a lot of things that I loved doing because I didn't enjoy them anymore or I didn't have the time or energy. I was constantly exhausted. I felt guilty because I wasn't any fun to be around when it came to family, friends, or my boyfriend. They would make an effort to try and take my mind off things, but it would never work because I knew what I was going back to the next day. I remember going to the cinema and crying the whole way through the film because of work and then feeling guilty about it. While at work, I stopped wanting to talk to anyone or to ever make any conversation. I didn't have any energy or enthusiasm to come up with fun and creative ideas. I cried every time I went to the office, and I had to go to the bathroom to cry or to pull myself together. It got to the point I was sat at my desk with big tears just splashing on the desk. I lost all confidence in myself and my ability. I second guessed everything and felt like everyone around me thought I was useless, so I thought I was useless too. It felt kind of like being crushed eventually, and I mentally gave up and began to feel numb. I would have this numb feeling and then all of a sudden feel incredibly sad and just break down in tears, usually when I left the office, but sometimes in work as well. I felt like everyone around me didn't like me. I felt like people identified me as being slightly quieter than others and used this against me. Instead of being accepted, I felt like I was essentially told that to succeed, I needed to be different. It felt like no matter what I did, how well I did, it would never be enough because my personality wasn't right. I felt worthless and completely unvalued. I felt like nothing I did was ever good enough, and this spilled into my life outside of work and was seriously difficult to heal from, and it's something that I still struggle with. I was the lowest paid in my team and struggled with money, which made everything feel so much worse as I was stressed about money and felt trapped in the job. I was scared to speak up for myself because I was worried about losing my job. The nature of the team I worked in also contributed to this burnout. Things were toxic and everyone else was under pressure from whoever was above them. It was becoming the norm for any one of us to be reduced to tears in meetings at any given point. Now, looking back, things aren't always easy at work and there will be times that everyone has to do some extra. I know that sometimes that things will be stressful, but if the team around you is supportive and well-intentioned, it makes all the difference. It took me 6 months to start to get back to normal and get my personality back, enjoy things again and have the confidence to even meet new people and join in with new social situations. It took a long time to build back feeling like I was of value and had something to offer in work but also in life. Staff need to feel valued and like their contributions and their presence on the team is appreciated. I think it's really important that this comes from salary as well as working well with supportive colleagues. Both of these things are so important, especially when work is busy or stressful. At the time, I wondered if my reaction and response to everything was disproportionate and dramatic, also a product of the culture at the workplace. But looking back and writing this down, it wasn't. My life is completely different now, and I'm cooking properly, sleeping properly, exercising, taking up new and old hobbies, and I've even made new friends, which I never thought I would. I'm enjoying living my life. If I strip everything back, I really loved the work that I did and what I was working on and the things I was getting to do. But it was just, and then she kind of goes on to say, but I was just so eroded and worked out. And she's kind of touched on every single thing we spoke about: economic insecurity, feeling like she never got time to stop working, and then fearing for losing her job.
Yeah, and also the toxic culture, she's kind of referring to, isn't it? I think there's a cultural shift has to be done.
Sorry, that was such a long sort of story for me, but
really
I felt that
interesting.
we could talk and talk and talk and sort of speculate and theorise, but to hear it from someone
100%.
who's experienced that now,
Yeah.
I know this is so hypothetical, but if she had come and sat where I'm sitting, what would you have said to her? What type of advice would you give, and like what analysis would you have had?
I think just take time off for yourself and be more compassionate toward yourself, and I think, the self-compassion plays a huge role, Sean, because, as you noticed, she was going through a tough time and she felt undervalued, undermined, maybe, not appreciated enough by the team. And that's something, I know we can't change people, and, sure enough, she worked in a very toxic, work culture. I think, even the leaders or the management or CEOs, they also need to kind of adapt. They need to adjust to the, like offering a better support for the employees. It's not just about the employees. I think they also need to, like take a step forward and to kind of help the employees. I think I would often have told her, just be kind to yourself.
Yeah, and it sounds like such a simplistic. Almost, it could be misinterpreted as being like a vague response, but be good to yourself, be kind to yourself.
Yeah, take time off.
I always say to when I'm hard on myself, I think, well, if someone came to me with whatever issue I'm facing, what would I tell them?
Yeah,
and then try and tell myself the same.
Yeah, and also, maybe create the boundaries with your manager. I think a lot of the time what we see, not being able to, brave enough to create the boundary, that also blurs the individual life from work life, which kind of affects the work-life balance. For example, sending an email, as you see, she mentioned, cooking dinner quickly to opening up my laptop. Why? Where's that come from? Why we need to work in evenings? Okay, if there's a nature of the job is something different, but is it coming from our unrealistic expectation from the manager?
See, maybe I'm just like a chancer, but if I got home at 5 and then it was like, well, you need to work from 5 till midnight, I'd say, cool, well, you need to pay me from 5 to midnight.
Exactly, yeah. There's so many jobs, they are not getting paid for the evening hours, but they said that because of the workload, they have to work.
And that's not to say, because I feel like if I'm awake in my head, I'm thinking about work. I love that. And to me, it's like a hobby. I would like to be doing it anyway. But I appreciate that's not the same for all. And there may be some people that think, well, I really enjoy doing that. I think, great, good for you.
Yeah, because don't forget, it comes from your passion and curiosity.
Well,
You're doing your job because you love your job.
Yeah, that's
isn't it?
I mean, I don't want to say to anyone I would do it for free, because then I get enough people asking me. That, but it's like, oh yeah, thanks for paying me and like exposure, and that was really good of you.
But
I'll phone up my car people and say, yeah, do you accept exposure for payment? Because I've got loads of exposure.
But see, like about this lady, it surely was coming from that financial insecurity, isn't it? As we talked about fear-based motivation. So she works because otherwise she could have left behind. So that's why she has to work. She has to work. She has to come, just get on with the pace of the job.
Yeah. There's a friend of mine who owns a company, and honestly, one of the best humans that I know. He's just an incredible guy, and he cares about people. He cares about his staff. he doesn't just pay lip service to that. He puts his money where his mouth is with that type of thing. And sometimes if we have a chat and he's got very legitimate worries, they're very different to what I can relate to or anyone else, and talking about salaries and paying people and keeping staff and staff leaving and keeping contracts and all of these things. And I kind of like tongue in cheek said, I was like, yeah, you have those worries in a £1 million house. And I was like, and it's not to say that they don't worry you, that they shouldn't worry you, and that no one else would be worried by it. And I was like, but they're very different to, so your staff,
100%.
it's on a different level, they're like a different stratosphere, but they probably feel the same, if not more sickness than you do, because if everything else falls apart, you still have, you know, X, Y, and Z. But for a lot of people, if one payment stops or one paycheck stops, or you know, there are times when, if you know, I'm waiting on invoices, if it goes a couple of months, you start to really feel the heat underneath you. And so yeah, I can completely see why then how she's got stuck in that cycle of just not wanting to say anything, because
100%.
she in 3 weeks she needs that payment to come. If not, life gets a whole lot worse.
And the problem is, you know, as a human being, we can stuck in the stress cycle for years and years without even us noticing that.
Yeah.
And
just become like his second nature.
100%. Because you get caught up in the negative automatic thought cycle. You know, I'm a failure, I'm rubbish, I'm not doing good enough. And obviously this is going to have a knock-on effect on your behavior. You might start to procrastinate. You might just put off the task. You might even avoid socializing with colleagues. They're going out, they're having fun, but you might be completely feel left out. You know, you might not even want to go out with them because you can't keep up with the airspeed.
Yeah. The like, I'm always very careful about how I say this, because it's not to ever denigrate or disparage anyone's work or what they do. And it's great to feel pride in that, and it's great to be good at that. But when you kind of strip it back, it's like, so what did I do? I was like I can't remember what my job title was at the last like real job, like the proper grown-ups job that I had before I started doing this. It was like business intermediary or something. And basically I was like a middleman between Spanish speaking clients and, you know, the English speaking company. And if that wasn't going well, my self-esteem sometimes would be on the floor, and then the weekend would come and I wouldn't feel great. And now looking back, I'm like, is that what I was going to be judged on? Yeah, I mean, this is what you were like as a guy, and these are the relationships you had, but forget that. What were you like as a business intermediary? Who gives a fuck? Like,
Who cares?
Sometimes you have to kind of, it's good to do that, make that separation. And I laugh looking back, but I was so, how I felt about myself was dependent on how that week at work had gone. And I felt the same. I needed that paycheck to keep coming, and you get stuck in that cycle. So I completely understand. So I think it relies on whether it's management, managing directors, CEOs, team leaders, to just have that sort of understanding about, what are people beneath them? How are they feeling? And I suppose it sometimes requires like a conduit or like a bridge, which I want to ask you kind of about your work with businesses. Like you mentioned that you worked with law firms and others. What type of thing is it like? Do they come and see you? Do you go and see them?
Yeah.
Do you go in to see them? Did they come to see you?
So I think it was just tailoring to every business needs, really. So some of them, they might need one-to-one support for the employment team, or some of them they ask in a way of offering them workshops, you know, bi-monthly or like bi-weekly, or you know, once a week. It kind of depends on what they ask for. But I think that ultimately, I always tell them, you know, the goal is kind of shifting the culture, the workplace culture, from having the bit judgmental perspective about mental health to be showing compassion to our colleagues. And, you know, maybe one of them would be, you know, when you're walking down the corridor and if you see your colleagues, they are not feeling great, just stand them and just ask, say, how are you and how do you feel? You know, just taking it, maybe just, you know, 5 or 10 minutes time off. But
it's like the sort of refreshing of the humanity side of it, and just being nice people. Because I think I've got an analogy for everything, but you get cleaners into the office to make sure that the surroundings and all the equipment and the desks and computers are fresh, they're clean, the bins are taken out. Why not do that for your culture and within people? And because things can stagnate, and sometimes you just need something to come in and to freshen things up, to improve communication. You've just reminded me, when I worked in a finance company back in, like, I started the 5th of January 2012 actually, and I worked there until I moved to Spain. And it was kind of in its infancy, and when I joined, and there was a guy and a woman, and maybe they experienced it as well. Maybe everything we've spoken about. If I look at it through the lens of compassion, maybe that's what they did. But they kind of scapegoated me for things, and I got the brunt of a lot of stuff. It wasn't great, and the owner of the company kind of left us to it while he did his stuff, and then he brought this guy in who, he was quite hardline, but he came to like analyze things. And
overanalyzing.
But he came in and he was kind of trying to re-establish this. Like, we're all in this together. We can all succeed together. One person's success doesn't have to be at the expense of another. And but it was really good. He came in, cleared the air, and the guy and the woman, though, they tried to get me like bumped off, and he actually recognised that they were the issues, the kind of bad apples. And he advised the owner, you have to get rid of these two. So, since he tried to get rid of me. But then they brought these new people in. And it went from being like, I used to go into work like, dreading this. Like, I have to sit here for 8 hours. It's a horrible environment. And it felt dark. Like, everything just felt dark. And then when he sort of almost like transposed this new culture in, and anyone who came in was told this is what the culture is like, and it was amazing. It was a good place to work, and it kind of puts me in mind of what you're saying, like just a bit of communication, clear the air, clear the cobwebs.
Absolutely. I think if when they have a better communication, they are planning better, and especially in the meetings, if they have deeper conversation by having a bit being open up towards something. If somebody going through the tough time, kind of playing a role model. About CEOs or managers or leaders, I always tell just you are the role models. So you can be a role model for these people. You can make a mistake, and it's not end of the world. That's a learning journey.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that and work at some point, like like a person at the top saying, by the way, I made an arse of this.
Exactly.
But it happens.
100%. That that's very ice-breaking, Sean. That's extremely ice-breaking in terms of how people they've got so much fearful beliefs about, what if this happened to me? What if my manager notice I make a mistake? And when I'm really digging out, and the end is like, I'm gonna sacked, I'm gonna lose my job. It's not just, whatever we say here is in the continuum, right? I'm not saying, someone, they can kind of make hundreds of the mistake and show the compassion. We're not talking about that. But I think, just a bit of, common sense. And if they are going through the tough time, surely there is something about them. If they are kind of keep losing the track, if they are for example, like, reading an email 10 times before sending them, or they kind of skipping their meetings, or, avoiding, and you need to kind of step in and ask them, how do you feel about?
It wouldn't be a conversation with me if I didn't bring it back to football at some point. But Sir Alex Ferguson, I think, greatest leader, manager of all time. And at half time, Ryan Giggs and Paul Scholes would invariably be the best performing players on the pitch. And at half time, he would come in and scream in their faces.
Yeah.
And they accepted that as well, as like, okay, you can shout at me to show that I can make. They probably had done nothing wrong, or maybe one pass, and he'd be screaming. And then it was a way of saying, like, everybody will get the same treatment, but also you can make mistakes and still stay here.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it.
I think it's a very cultural shift, isn't it? By just making a mistake, you're not gonna lose your job. So that again, that's coming from fear-based motivation. Most of the people, what we're saying, they worry about losing their job. They worry about being judged because of the mental health problem. They're going through the burnout, and the damage is already done. but they are not still able to tell to people, the managers, CEOs, like, hey, this has happened to me.
Because it's something like if you own a company that has a lot of staff or staff where you require them to be on the ball, I think it is an investment that should be made. Because one of the most common things we hear these days are people are soft, and there may be an argument that there is a certain softness that has creeped in through the generations. There may be something to discuss there, but generally speaking, I think that's wide of the mark, because, like we say, the economic insecurity that people face. We do live in the social media world, and it's a trope that this will be said on 100,000 podcasts globally today alone. Social media, comparison culture, that type of thing. But just because it's frequently discussed and it's sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? It permeates all existence. It doesn't render it any less of a serious reason, I think. So you take these things, add in the fact that COVID probably did mess up a lot of people. I think we sometimes just, I've got a trauma response where I just forget it happened. I'm like, sometimes I go, oh, wow, yeah, that was only like 2 years ago that really fully ended. Like 2 or 3 years ago that properly stopped. Then the fact that we're constantly on the precipice of global nuclear war. We're constantly being bombarded with images. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be seeing them, seeing what's going on, but you're bombarded with horrors in Russia and Ukraine and Gaza. And then you wonder why people are a nervous wreck.
Yeah. And can I just also add something about the social media? Because, social media has a huge impact on people's mental health. Unfortunately, these days, especially if you think about the burnout, people say, oh, how many times, let's just be honest, how many times we open social media and people are on holiday? We also feel like a burnout. Oh, for God's sake, I am working 24/7, but people on holiday having fun.
If someone stopped me in the street and said, who do you know that's on holiday? I would say every single person I know is on holiday except me.
Exactly. And that's a social media impact. But I always tend to say, that is a platform. It just depends how we want to use it. So you can still use it, very mindfully. You can use it to improve yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a source of inspiration. Or you can choose subconsciously to get caught up in, in people's life. But don't forget, you're just seeing one glimpse of their life.
Yeah, absolutely. It brings me around perfectly to the point of personal responsibility, because it is our responsibility as well to recognise if something's not right within us. And we can't always wait for a saviour, because the saviour's not coming.
No.
The saviour's never coming.
That's true.
And it requires a bit of introspection. And I think being honest with yourself, and then taking that step, even if it's just a recognition or understanding or sort of exploration. And I think if we can combine that personal responsibility with a corporate responsibility, because if you're asking people to come and work for you for 40 hours a week, you have like a sort of obligation to ensure that not only is the physical environment that they're working in safe and clean and conducive to good output, but also then the unseen, everything that we are kind of talking about, is also matches up with that. How would companies get in touch with you if they wanted to explore the type of package that you can offer? Yeah,
so they can contact us via our emails, but we would definitely tailor into their need what they ask us. We often take a time to explore again what they are looking for. Some of them, they might just say, we want just, monthly workshops. We just want to, improve mental health perspective around people, or like improve resilience, managing people's stress in the workplace, helping them to kind of identify how they can have a work-life balance. These are the things we offer.
Yeah. And I think to kind of go back to what I said earlier about the sort of surface level paying lip service approach to people's mental wellness and well-being, obviously you go way beyond just here's some positive affirmations, and so it's like a very detailed and sort of deep type of thing that you offer, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of the businesses, is that what you asked?
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that. Sorry.
So what I'll ask that again. But what I was saying was like where I had spoken about people saying like, it's okay not to be okay. Okay, goodbye. And not
Yeah.
offering any actual meaningful sort of interaction.
Yes.
So I'll
Yeah.
ask that again. And basically saying that it's more than just like, here's an affirmation card and
Yes.
here we can have 5 minutes of meditation. It's more like
Yeah.
practical steps.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. You know, for example, like taking 5 minutes deep, you know, conscious breathing in the meetings, or like, you know, having a bit of appreciation in the beginning of the meetings, even for nothing, you know, just feeling appreciated for someone, they have done something in the meetings, or you know, a quick, you know, shake it off and, you know, standing up and just take a deep breath, you know, just going, you know, taking a time off, even for like a 5 or 10 minutes, it still does the job. Or like meditation, you know, mindfulness activities. This is the things we would definitely offer in as a package. You know, mindfulness activities for people in the meetings, and they can actually see how much they are not mindful, how much they get easily caught up in their subconscious mindset. So I think, you know, the practical tools definitely help people instead of, I mean, you're right, instead of saying, oh, it's okay not to be okay, but obviously you need to bring something as a practical steps. And also one of the key things also we would work, I mean, I would definitely recommend is creating the boundaries, you know, with the line managers, with whoever you work with. So, you know, make sure like be firm on the things you want, and it doesn't define who you are. For example, if you say, you know, I'm not going to answer my emails after 7 p.m. That's it, done. Or I'm not going to work on weekends. So then they can actually see this is the boundary you create. It's not about, you know, you become a less of a man if you create a boundary. It actually helps you to kind of, you know, become more fresher, more sharper the next day if you have a...
You know, just when you mentioned the it's okay not to be okay thing, I think the equivalent is like going to the doctor, telling them I have these really worrying symptoms and like I've been in a really bad way physically, and the doctor's like, that's okay. Like, don't feel bad. You know, like, okay, cool.
Take time off.
I would like you to help me resolve this. Like, I don't want you just to tell me not to feel guilty about it or embarrassed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I kind of repeating myself slightly, but it's just because I do believe so firmly that I think if there was this type of, across the board, like the effort and the investment from companies, I think you'd see generally a happier society. I know like not everyone is going to have that opportunity, but I think economically some people might think, I don't know, if you're a business owner, you might think, a lot of rubbish, turn up, do your work. But if you said, okay, well, from a fiscal perspective and a financial perspective, it's going to hugely benefit you. Like, 100%. Would you still be so dismissive? I wonder, I'm asking you this right off the top of your head, but do you happen to know like the economic impact generally, like to lost like sick days or staff turnover?
Yeah, 100%. There's a huge economic impact, Sean, for having a bit of, you know, lack of support in mental health. So one would be, you know, absenteeism and presenteeism, lack of productivity, taking too much time off from the work, and, you know, recruiting, you know, new staff member, paying for the recruitment team, training those staff member, and, you know, down the line, healthcare costs, you know, like a hidden costs when they have to kind of cover for employee team.
Well, I've just found here from 2024, I think this is a London School of Economics survey had calculated figures reaching over £300 billion annually just from the human cost. I suppose if you're trying to run a company and a business as well and pick up some momentum, and then staff are dropping off, and we can't always just keep saying, oh well, it's just that's the world we live in. It's like, well, it can be resolved. It can be sort of, there are solutions to it.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask as well, or two questions, kind of specific questions I have for you. Overcoming the inner critic. I'm so critical. I'm horrible to myself. I can be really horrible to myself of how critical I am with my work, and oh man, you said that too fast, or you could have said this in a better way, or that was rubbish, or honestly, even down to fitness. Sometimes my car, my car's always really clean, and if I just let it slip, sometimes I'm really hard on myself when it's like, well, I've been busy.
Yeah.
Like I've had stuff on. How do I overcome that? Let's use me as the focal point to take the focus away from anyone else.
Yeah, so I think, that might also link to your perfectionist mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then why do I have that? What does that say about me? Am I
Is-
desperate
is,
to be admired?
Well, again, this is all depends on how about our upbringing. We have a core belief. It start to kind of shape us around age 9, 10, right? So we start to kind of believe the world in a way we want to believe. For example, if I make a mistake, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
If I don't, wash my car in appropriate time, that means I am rubbish. Or if I don't run this business in this format, that means I'm failure. So it's all of like a like if then scenarios, like if I do this, then that means that is really hard. And what we call it like a rules for living. What we need to do, we need to break them down and see what happens. Don't wash your car, and what happened? I mean, I had a client. They were a GP, and what happens? They had a long night shifts, and their children, they were always going to school without irons. Like just a normal shirt.
Yeah.
They were
like-
not tidy enough in their mindset, and
Yeah.
she was blaming herself. Like, I am a good mom, and look at me. I'm not sending my children with like a proper, iron clothes. And then what we say, okay, let's just make experiments, see what will happen. No one actually cared. We just break that taboo. And let's break that taboo and see what happens. No one actually cares if you're coming to school with the proper ironing clothes or not really.
That's probably like one of the main ones for me.
That's a
I can't-
change, isn't it?
Yeah,
Change
yeah.
is
It's
not
like
easy.
I physically cannot walk over the door
Yeah,
if everything's not ironed and my shoes aren't like sparkling,
yeah.
like every part. And
Yeah.
I've always been like that.
But see how much the stress you kind of taking on yourself because of all of this.
Yeah.
It is stressful. It's very time consuming, stressful, and self sabotaging almost, isn't it? Not being kind to ourselves, because the inner critic is like a self critical dialogue who is harshly evaluate you constantly.
Yeah, because if someone had like shoes that were slightly dirty or the clothes weren't perfectly immaculate, I wouldn't think badly of them, and I certainly
Exactly.
wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
But then I always think like, yeah,
This is exactly the question, Sean, I ask my clients. I'm like, would you judge your colleagues, or would you judge your friend if they come in this, in the workplace, not with their, iron shirt? Would you judge them?
no. But
No.
this is how much of a weirdo I am. I remember being with my friend Dean in like 2009, and his polo shirt wasn't ironed, and I said, "Take it off, and I'm going to iron it for you."
Oh my
And I
goodness.
did it for him. And I was like, "There you go." I was like, "But I thought that looks better." I thought, I'm doing you a favour. I wonder if
Yeah.
he remembers it actually. Well,
But that's because you were like so close to him, right?
yeah.
So obviously, in the society,
I can be
you know,
horrible. We're horrible to each other, but we love each
but
other.
don't forget, we are our own worst enemy,
Yeah.
right? We are our own worst enemies because we can be highly self-critical.
So that's how we go over it. Just think, will anyone actually care?
Yeah. And instead of, maybe hope, kind of helping yourself to stepping away from, moving away from I'm not good enough and everything has to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I am what I achieved, to the compassionate zone. Like, I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
I'm just doing my best.
Yeah, sometimes your best isn't always 10 out of 10, but you gave everything, and what's more important is the effort
Yeah.
as opposed to the outcome a lot of
Yeah.
the time.
And this is the thing, yeah. So most of the people work based on the outcome, not on the progress, not on the journey.
Yeah, I'm trying.
You
See,
know?
there we go. I'm trying, because that's another, like, I think, not to go too tangential here, but with my work as well, it's like results based,
Yeah.
and that's how you
Yes.
feel others perceive you. So you might have a 6 month period where you're everywhere, you're on everything, you're doing great,
Yeah.
everyone's patting your back, the money's rolling in, and then when the adulation's probably not appreciation, maybe a better word, that can naturally quiet, because it's like a wave,
Yeah.
and it's sometimes up, sometimes down, and then you're like, oh, am I a failure? And you think, well, no, because suppose you have to zoom out and look at the entire year as opposed to the week.
Exactly. And so what actually you're doing, you're kind of looking at external validation, isn't it? Rather than internal validation.
Yeah,
Rather
yeah,
than
and focus on
yeah.
what type of person am I? What do I do for other people?
Exactly.
How do I make other people feel?
Yeah. Or maybe, instead of comparing ourselves to what others, how about comparing ourselves with ourselves, back into last year and see how much you progressed,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
isn't it? I think, one of the key things in the business sector is, for example, say like presentation, right? The employees coming out of and they kind of worrying about they mess up the presentation, they were completely rubbish. Now, what we tend to do in terms of the modeling, you know, say like the leaders or managers, we say like play a role model, be a role model for them. They say, okay, yes, I did it. I know the presentation was tough, but I managed that. Again, from self-sabotaging to self-kindness,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like, yes, I know you've got validating. I think the key thing is validating. Yes, I have inner critic. Yes, I am been self-sabotaging myself.
Mm-hmm.
But how would I change that?
So do you think when we leave the studio, I should go and buy myself something nice and be nice to myself?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, even if it's just a coffee and a cake, I'll go and get myself something nice.
Yeah.
No, don't encourage me. That's my problem. I'm far too nice to myself.
Yeah.
And the
I
shop,
think that's a self-care, isn't it?
yeah, the shop staff always see me coming. Like, here he is again, being nice to himself. um, but you kind of, as we round up, I mean, I've really enjoyed getting to hear your sort of clinical insight and to compare it to or to hold it against the experience of the person who very kindly gave me their sort of account of how they felt it. And yeah, I think it's my conclusion is it's people have to have that personal responsibility to recognize it themselves, but it greatly helps
Yeah.
if employers and managers and that type of thing and business owners recognize that as well, because everyone benefits. It's
Yeah.
not just, okay, well, I'll give them this and I get
Yeah.
nothing back. Like, you get a hell of a lot back.
Exactly. And I think that's the big shout out for like managers, CEOs, leaders. Like, please go and talk about mental health with your team.
Yeah.
It's nothing bad about it. So if you talk about mental health, doesn't mean something bad might happen in the workplace, right? So I think based on the research, the CEOs who talk about mental health, they gain universally more respect than others
Mm-hmm.
because they open up the space.
Yeah.
They open up a space for people to come and join, and I think that also helps with the collaboration. So what we're seeing throughout the work process with the workshops we're running, so the creativity increased, the staff retention increased. People start to kind of do brainstorming rather than sticking with the safe options.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
do brainstorming. Instead of having the repetitive ideas, they come up with the new ideas because they feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing is really important is creating a psychological safety. That's what we tend to call in a business world. So psychological safety is a place that people, employees especially, they kind of feel safe enough to talk about
Yeah.
without fear of being judged by colleagues or by managers. So I think that's quite important to being able to kind of create psychological safety for employees to come to the managers, come to CEOs and talk about what's been happening for them.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great point. Well, I would never put my name or endorsement or anything like that to something or someone I didn't believe in, and I would say if I was a business owner, I would be getting in touch with you straight away.
Thanks.
To you listening, podcast cliche klaxon once again, but relevant links, website, social media, email, all available in the episode notes where they always are. I suppose I'll get your thoughts on this then. My sort of takeaway is that well-being is not a luxury, but it's like a vital component to a good life and also to good business.
Exactly. And maybe, the last thing is, do the job makes you happy. I think that's quite important. I know the financial security, I'm completely empathize with people. We have to work. I mean, that's our survival mechanism, but
It's annoying, isn't it?
I know, but do the job makes you happy. Otherwise, you're going to go get burnout. For
Yeah.
example, myself, time to time, we are a human being. We might just go through the burnout. But I think create a hobby. Create a hobby is quite important. If you don't have a hobby, you're going to go through the burnout, 100%.
Well, Dr. Aisan has just very eloquently said, do the jobs that make you happy. So if anyone happens to have a vacancy for selling pedalos on a beach in Greece while sort of simultaneously, sporadically acting out Mamma Mia, then please get in touch, because I would like to have a chat with you. I think I've got the skills that you need. I have the prerequisite qualities and characteristics required to make that job a success. So hopefully someone gets in touch with me. If not, I'll be back next week with another episode of Blether. Dr. Aisan, thank you so much for
having me.
Joining me. I look forward to chatting with you again.
Thanks.
And as I said, we'll be back next week with another episode of Blethered. Cheers.